Welcome to Spirituality Spots with Sister Kathy. I am so happy that you have decided to join me this week. This week's spot concerns a question that I received from a deacon friend of mine. And he asked me, Sister, how would you teach about the Holy Spirit to youngsters? And I said, that's really a great question. And I guess I would begin with a little introduction that as Catholics, we believe that the Holy Spirit is the third person of the Blessed Trinity. You know, that God is three persons. The Trinity is the love relationship between the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And you could then talk about the Nicene Creed. You know, that creed goes back to the early ancient church, where the Council Fathers taught that I believe in one God, the Father, Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and that we also believe in Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God. And then lastly, that I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Lord, the giver of life, who proceeds from the Father. And sometimes it's good when you talk about the Nicene Creed, whether it's with children that are preparing for confirmation or RCIA candidates. Oftentimes it's good to have people reflect on how they would create or what they would put in their own Nicene Creed. It's important that they begin to reflect on the similar values that they have in connection and try to relate the Holy Spirit with their own life. It's sometimes hard for us as human beings to realize that God's love is so awesome, so magnificent, so extravagant, that God shared his love and that Jesus shared his love by sending his Spirit. You know, it's a key statement in our Christian faith. And so the major methodology I would use for youngsters would be the Acts of the Apostles, of course, and especially chapter 1 and chapter 2, verses 1 to 13. And I noticed that on Amazon.com, one can purchase, it's called an energy stick. And it's by Steve Spangler Science. And that particular stick helps the youngsters get a feel for what the people experienced at that first Pentecost. They can feel the energy that the Spirit exuded at that time. And then I would move to Acts chapter 2 and Peter addressing the crowd. And then lastly, Acts chapter 3 is the fellowship of the believers. And then I would probably have the youngsters reflect on some questions. Who is the Holy Spirit? And Peter says the Holy Spirit is God's gift to us, coming through Jesus, the Messiah. The Holy Spirit is as much God as Jesus and the Father is. And then secondly, what can the Holy Spirit do? And what the Holy Spirit does is proclaim God's wonderful deeds in different languages so that all people would understand the role of the third person of the Trinity. The Holy Spirit is the one who helps us to say, yes, God's name ought to be above every other name. And that's why it's important for us to develop, especially as we're learning more about God, a deep relationship with Jesus. And then thirdly, I'd ask the students to reflect on what happened to the people. They go from pondering or wondering about this Holy Spirit to being joy-filled. The Holy Spirit brings joy, love, and peace. The Holy Spirit that Jesus gives each one of us is to help us and to comfort us, especially in times that are challenging. And then part 2 of the story, Jesus was led into the desert, and he is filled with the Holy Spirit when one believes in Jesus. So I would share with the students that at baptism, one is filled with the Holy Spirit. And then part 3 of the story of the Holy Spirit is to stress that the Holy Spirit comes in different ways, and we have to pay attention to how the Spirit is moving in our lives. So I hope this helps my deacon friend and all of you to reflect on this week as we're leaving Pentecost and one season of the church and going into another season of our church liturgical year. May the peace of the Lord be with you. May you have a good week. And thank you again for joining me. God bless you.